Hello and welcome to Through the Smoke. I am David the Funkmaster Footle.
I am Bobby, Lord Master, Chester Masters, and Esquire the Third Fabian.
I am Jesse Jones.
And I'm Eric Todd.
So tonight we have a special, I guess you could say, guest entrance to celebrate, what is today, guys?
International Pipe Smoking Day!
Yeah.
You didn't know there was such a thing, did you?
Yes.
Well, we're telling you there is.
Yeah, we are celebrating it, and to kind of start it off right, we have, what is this?
Okay, so, story, and then tobacco.
Story time.
Story time.
Okay.
So, for whatever reason, I am a fan of Dunhill pipes.
For whatever reason.
Horrendously overpriced, mediocre quality at best, but that's beside the point. I bought a 1988 Dunhill russet from a gentleman, and he included a small pouch of Esoterica St. Ives. The date on here is May of 1998.
1998 or 88?
1998.
98. Oh, okay.
So,
Impressive.
Esoterica still makes tobacco today. As you know, it can be near unobtainium, as rare as the tobacco is and as popular as it is. But we're talking blends like Penzance, Stonehaven, Margate, things like that. St. Ives is one of their lesser known blends. They still make it. On the label here, it says that it contains Virginia, Cavendish, Greek, Oriental, Latakia, and fruit extract. When I got it, it was bone dry, so I've rehydrated it, and it could be dreadful. I'm hoping we don't like it too much because we can't get any more.
We may be able to get St. Ives.
We can get St. Ives periodically.
Yeah.
If
But-
we're really paying attention.
At this
Yeah.
age,
It may be the same time it is from 1998 till now until we get to the
Yes,
next
more,
one.
yeah.
So I'm gonna start passing this around. You guys feel free to take some.
All
Light it up.
And so International Pipe Smoking Day is celebrated around the world by finding your favorite or a number of favorite pipes, and
We only have a couple here.
yeah, I guess our collections are
The-
kind of lacking
I
right
could
now.
not decide which pipes.
So, besides that, we got our regular coffee, and then Eric here decided to treat us with some beer.
Some beer.
Some beer.
some bar
Beer.
Well, hold on. These are craft beers, so beer.
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 Yes, beer.
Yeah.
Alright, so we have Tilburg's Dutch Brown Ale. And it is from
label.
Holland. And then we also have Big Sky Brewery's Bobo's Robust Porter.
Did you guys ever think Holland, like they call it Dutch? Like, why not Dutchland?
Dutchland.
Deutschland.
Deutschland.
Or-
Well, then you have Germany that's
Yeah.
Deutschland.
Deutschland.
So,
Well,
Yeah.
I understand that, but the country's called Holland. Why not like Hollander or something?
well, you go even further than that. It's the Netherlands where the Dutch come from. So it's like
Well, this is true too.
you're in Holland, which is actually the Netherlands, but they're called the Dutch.
Not confusing at all to us Americans,
Why?
especially as Texans.
Yeah.
Why?
Texas.
Where? Texas. America.
Here. Oh,
America!
So we have a bevy of beautiful pipes to smoke this evening. A bountiful array of tobaccos. We got some beer. We got some coffees, and it's supposed to be a joyous occasion tonight to celebrate pipe smoking and everything that is, was, and shall be. However, I have to rage a bit. I
Rage
can't-
on,
I-
friend, rage on.
So, I would probably speak for most of you, am not a fan of being told what to do
Amen.
by
Hey.
people who really shouldn't tell me what to do.
Absolutely.
Now, going with that, there has been a study that has just been recently done that goes on to talk about secondhand smoke and it being dangerous again,
Oh,
right?
God.
Because you know that they couldn't just settle with the bogus one that they had done before, so they had to go on and do another study because they didn't get the results they liked.
Yeah.
So, I saw this on Yahoo.
Okay.
Okay, that they were reporting, and the little Yahoo front page, and I printed it off. This is the tagline underneath the picture, and it says, "Another place where smoking should be banned." And then underneath that, it goes a little bit further to say, health researchers say these popular public spots should be targets due to the presence of kids. Secondhand smoke danger. And then the link. Now, the picture they used infuriated me. It is not lost to me that this is International Pipe Smoking Day, and apparently it wasn't to them, because if you look,
Oh dear.
they have a man, like an older gentleman, maybe in his middle-aged time, you know, that is outstanding what looks to be probably a golf course, but we'll just say a park, smoking a pipe. Now, there's no way of knowing if that's actually tobacco in that pipe, but let's just assume, because it's a nice pipe with a 2-knuckle bamboo shank extension, that it's not going to be something other than tobacco, right? Especially with that man's righteous mustache, that's it. However, when you click the link to go to the article then that talked about how secondhand smoke is bad, what are the images that are all tied to the actual article itself? Cigarettes, and not just any cigarettes. These are named brand, pre-packaged cigarettes. I see Marlboro in there. There's Camel. There's Cool.
Right, Palm.
Yep. And I think there's even one Virginia Slim.
Wow.
No, 2. Sorry.
2.
Right.
Lady toothpick.
So you have this entry-level picture to then link you to an article about supposed dangers of secondhand smoking, and they focus on cigarette tobacco, and I about shat a brick. And that was probably as tightly coiled as Black Irish X.
Ooh, that's painful.
I hate how they lump the two together. Even if you're going off of strictly it is a tobacco product and you're smoking it, the sheer lower frequency of smoking tobacco out of a pipe as compared to a cigarette inherently makes it a little bit better for you.
And
As well, these prepackaged suckers
are bad.
have everything that they always complain about added in, and yet there's nothing in this. You
Just straight
heard
tobacco.
what was in this tobacco when Jesse named it off, and that's it. That's all that's in there.
No
chemicals,
fiberglass, no chemicals,
fillers, no accelerants, nothing.
And so I made a comment mainly about that, and I talked about how one of my biggest issues is the lumping together of what everyone is smoking into one conglomeration of people who just don't like smoking that much, wanting to control it all. And then I mentioned this specific article, probably got lost in the comments somewhere, is for every logical point that was made, comment like my own, there was some, right-wing nut saying it's Obama conspiracy and all this stuff, and I'm just like, way to make us people who are disagreeing with this sound like idiots. And then there was a bunch of people who were like, smoking is awful, like I had 7 family members die of cancer and stuff like this, and it's just like, how can you argue with them? The debate can't happen healthfully, I guess you could say.
Well, both sides are very emotionally charged, and so
Yeah.
whatever logical argument you could pose is going to be ignored. Now, I will remind our humble viewers that the Surgeon General's warning that initially uncovered the ill effects of smoking cigarettes also reported that pipe smokers live on average longer than non-smokers. Take that in your pipe and smoke it.
Well played.
Ting. You can put it on the board, yes! So that was my rage today. I took screenshots of the 2 pictures, and I printed it off, and I just couldn't handle it.
That's pretty ridiculous, I'm not gonna lie. Like,
So, impressions.
Hard to say.
hard, yeah. It's, I won't say it's got a muddled flavor, but no one thing sticks out. I can't
It's
really
not.
get a good-
It's so complex. It's not very.
I can't, yeah.
I don't know.
I can't get a fix on any one thing, so.
I like to describe flavors as shapes. It helps me.
This
This
is-
sounds kind of strange.
This is amoeba-like.
But this has a very round, mellow flavor.
Amorphous blob.
You can definitely
Yeah.
taste some of the creaminess from the Latakia. You
Yeah.
can also taste the Virginia. It's very
Yeah.
balanced. I got almost a soapy.
Yeah.
Like,
It felt like it coated my tongue.
Yes,
Yeah.
It's not
that's
even
what I
necessarily a
mean.
flavor, but it's got a coating.
More of a feeling than a flavor.
Yeah. It also was burning really strangely. Like, I don't know. Not bad.
Well, I'll say that this beer is actually pretty scrumptious.
Is it?
It is.
you should pass me one of them.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say.
By the sun.
Yeah.
I get the whole box! Yeah!
I wanna talk about the label here.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
it's definitely something interesting.
One of
It's
the most
fantastically strange.
It seems to be
A bird.
bird's head with a man. Well,
it's a human-like figure,
it has 3 fingers, 4
but
fingers.
it's got these weird like claw-like fingers, and
Yeah.
this bird has a black kettle upon its head as a hat, while it's eating a naked man with birds
birds
sprouting
coming out of
his
his
bottom.
ass.
And it's
Oh, and it's wearing two other pots as shoes.
Yes,
It sure is.
yeah, and it's a really strange.
No.
What is that coming
particular-
off his lap?
That particular bird, it has like the whiskers. And what are those called? It's like one of those fly-catching, bug-catching birds. There's a specific name for those.
No, and they
That
have
variety of bird.
Yeah, I
It's
can't.
definitely interesting.
it's
See
yeah.
a little better on there.
Yeah.
That's a good way to put. I don't know. It's quite awkward. It's just- it bothers me. I'm disturbed.
Well,
I don't know.
I admit that it's part of the reason why I bought it.
Yeah, it's very
well,
much
you
conversation
you
starter.
also bought this Bobo's Robust Porter, and
with
if you
the
look,
feral chihuahua on it.
yeah,
like,
it looks like the Chupacabra.
Speaking of, growing up, I grew up in the desert, and we always used to have these jokes between all of us that thousands of years ago, especially because I grew up on the outskirts of the Chihuahuan Desert, that thousands of years ago, Chihuahuas used to roam in packs of the hundreds through this desert, and they were like land piranhas. They would eat anything and everything that came across, leaving just bones and whatnot. And then, as Native Americans started to settle in the area, that's when they domesticated the Chihuahuas, which is why there's such vicious little rat monsters today. Is because they're land piranhas. And I saw an article on the other day on the internet about Arizona, and is specifically Maricopa County, has a problem with feral Chihuahua packs, like terrorizing children and stuff.
It was true.
It was
the
true.
legend was true.
This whole time, I didn't know.
you weren't talking about hundreds of years ago. You were foretelling the future.
I was, and I read this article, and Maricopa County alone had over 6,000 calls in 2012 reporting feral Chihuahuas terrorizing children and stuff. And I was just mystified. I could not help but laugh because this whole time it had been real.
Well, just think about how many Chihuahuas people like Paris Hilton have gone through.
Golly.
Oh.
To where you wonder if those dogs got out while they still could and ran as far as they could. They wind up in Arizona.
The feral life was a better
Yeah,
choice.
Yeah, terrorizing the children of Arizona was better than living in Paris Hilton's handbag.
I agree. I agree.
Speaking of which, what are your thoughts on that? I'm not a big fan of seeing girls walking around with these huge handbags
toy
and that
dogs.
dog hanging out of the top of it.
It's
I just
pretty
think
ridiculous.
I find it really idiotic.
I think it's okay if and only if you do what the ancient Chinese would do and have those long robes and the Shih Tzu in the sleeves. Because that's how they would carry him around.
Yeah.
They would literally have those long sleeves and they'd carry a Shih Tzu inside. And that was like how they would transport their little toy dog, right?
That was their purse.
Yeah. So to me, as long as we go back to that kind of coolness, where we're wearing like long robes, gigantic sleeves that you can hide stuff in, then fine.
Back then, that was commonplace.
Yeah.
That was.
Yeah. Now we
it
got.
would be like.
So
what the hell's
they're
that guy
saying
doing?
they're
Oh, that's cool as shit.
Yeah.
We're just being retro.
And all of Seattle would call me God.
Yeah. You would walk into a Starbucks up there and they would be like, we have found our Messiah.
We are not worthy.
We are not
And my little dog was like, sick 'em, boy!
Yeah. Actually, talking about smaller dogs, right?
Oh my god! Yes!
It would launch. What I had said.
Yes.
It would launch out of its sleeve and go.
Yeah. Like, I just picture the rabbit from Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Like, just it's just a rabbit. But it's got huge teeth.
Pointy thingies. Speaking of, I was talking about little dogs. I had one of my good friends post upon my Facebook wall a picture of a Swedish Valhund, which those of you who are not familiar with them, they're a medium-sized dog. They're about 20-25 pounds. They stand about 1.5 feet tall or so, but they're basically wolf corgis.
Yes.
They have the same body. They have the same frame as a corgi. They even have pretty much the same face.
They've got the markings of a wolf.
But they have the markings and colorings of a wolf. It's pretty fantastic.
They're cool as shit.
Yes. And so I grew up with very large dogs. I grew up on some land with some livestock, so I always had mastiffs and shepherds and things like that. So to me, if it's under like 95 pounds, it's a small dog. So for this, I mean, this is a little toy dog. But since I'm in the city and in an apartment and whatnot, I would totally get one.
Oh yeah.
I would totally get one.
Oh yeah.
Speaking of smaller dogs that are cool, I am a big fan of huskies. I have 2 at my house. My brother has 2 as well with his wife, but I like the idea of a smaller husky.
Yes.
The Alaskan Klekai is extremely it's adorable.
Yeah, they're cute little fuzzballs.
It's a miniature husky. It's like a Chihuahua-sized husky, or bigger, a little bit bigger.
See, they're like the size like a Boston Terrier or something like that.
Yeah, more like a Boston
Terrier.
Terrier.
They're about 10-15 pounds,
Yeah,
but they're
they're exactly like a husky.
Just
the same.
It's basically
same
a
ratio
husky
and
pup.
everything.
It's a forever husky.
It's like a shrinky dink of a husky.
Yes, and they're awesome looking.
Forever husky
But
pup.
they're also extremely expensive.
Yeah.
They're like 12.
Okay, and
that's
for
what the Volans are looking at about $1,200.
for those of you who didn't get my reference, shrinky dinks were this awful idea that was marketed towards children, where you would color on these little pieces of like what looked like overhead projector slides or like little sheets, and then you'd put them in the oven and you'd bake them pretty much, and they would melt and then shrink down, and so you would have a picture that you had drawn with markers about that big, and it would shrink down to about that big, and they thought this was cool and that children should be messing around with the oven.
Yes. Yes. To be fair, I remember when I was smaller, I had this little, I don't exactly know what it was, but it was like a little forge thing. And it had like chunks of pewter.
Oh yeah,
and you would melt it and you pour it in the little cast and you can make like necklaces out of it and things like that.
Cool.
So
Yeah.
I had like a mini pewter forge in my room.
That's awesome.
When I was like 7.
Well, it was like the same principle of like creepy crawlies, but with metal.
With metal. And it was fantastic.
Speaking of old toys that are I guess kind of questionable.
Well, see,
Questionable as to the safety.
you have to realize, by the time I was 9, I had figured out the mechanism that kept it from turning on unless the lid was closed, and I took off the lid and rigged the mechanism so it would still turn on. So I had an open forge when I was 9.
Okay,
It's fantastic.
but they don't make toys like they used to.
No.
No.
When I was growing up, my brother and I had this toy. You could essentially weld with plastic.
What?
It was super cool. You could make cars, you could make all these different things, but it had a stick that looked like just a plastic needle and it like vibrated, and the supersonic vibrations or whatever made it weld. I don't know what it did, but it was super cool.
Wow.
I just remember it, and I remember that I want it again.
We can get you a 3D pin.
There you go.
Hey!
I've seen those. Actually, funny enough, I guess they thought they were marketing it to the wrong people. So, a Play-Doh or Play-Doh affiliated company came out with a 3D Play-Doh pen called Da Vinci.
Oh.
It's pretty cool.
Nice.
I kind of want to get one.
Yeah, I'd be okay with it. And then so all you do is just like feed the Play-Doh into the thing, and then that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, but the thing is though, it's to me that almost is actually a little less cool because I could do the same thing without a pen.
Yeah.
I just make,
Right.
Right, you can make little things.
Sculpt the Play-Doh.
I think with this
That
stuff,
I think it could be trying to expose the younger generations to the technology and getting them
3D, yeah.
accustomed to it at a younger age.
I guess.
I mean, possibly. I mean, because they're like now they're making kids learn how to use tablets before they even get into kindergarten. They're expected to know how to know their alphabet before they even get into kindergarten.
well, yeah.
I didn't. I learned my alphabet when I was in like the first grade, second or like K5 or K whatever it is.
Yeah.
Before first grade.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do remember like pre-K. I actually went to CDO. I didn't actually go to pre-K, but I went to CDO, and I remember we were learning colors.
Mm-hmm.
That was the cool thing. Was like getting on the little tricycle thing that was like connected to the wheels, so you couldn't fall or whatever, and like everybody running on the tricycle thing, and learning colors. And that was cool stuff right then.
I don't remember too much from preschool. I remember that it was at the Roselle Methodist Church.
Yeah.
Was the preschool I went to, and I was the lone Jewish person.
Yeah.
And so I would, and once a week they would actually take you into the church itself and then like do like a little spiel, right? And I would sit in there and I would be bored because I didn't know what was going on, and everyone else like went to church either there or just in general, like all the other kids, and so they knew what was going on at least, and I was just like, you know, what's going on? I don't like, hey, and so I would get bored and just start wandering around or just like causing a ruckus. So then it got to the point where they wouldn't allow me to go with the other kids to the church. So I would just sit in the principal's office and play with those like dirty, crusty, filmy public use toys that are always like in.
Oh
like,
yeah.
like the doctor's office toys or something like that. Yeah, it was just like that, but in the principal's office, and I would just sit there. And I remember that. I remember that because my birthday's in the summer, I couldn't celebrate it during the school year, and so they would celebrate my half birthday. Which is February 10th.
That's kind of cool.
It is. And what they do is they drew a cake on a piece of paper for you.
Nice.
And then you would all sit around the little...
For the half birthday or for all?
For all the birthdays.
I was like, for the half birthday,
For the half birthday,
You don't get around there. It's only half there.
No, those were all... Because they didn't want to have a bunch of kids hyped up on sugar, so they just would draw a cake. And you'd all sit around this little easel that they drew a cake on and sing happy birthday. And then I remember this one kid threw a block at me, and it hit me in the hand, because I went up to block it, like, to deflect it, and it hit me in the hand right in between these two fingers, and it cut the webbing of my fingers, and it just started bleeding profusely everywhere. And then, of course, you know, being preschool, I think I was 4 at the time? No, I was 3 at the time that year. And I was running around the preschool room screaming as blood is just like pouring out. So there's blood all over this room that they had to clean up later. Yeah.
Alright. Well, I think we are running out of time.
Yeah, so we'll take a quick break.
Yep. Take a break and come right back.
Nope. So welcome back. Now
we're back.
We left off on a high note, or I should say, we started on a high note, went to a low note of raging, and then went back to a high note. So let's start with a low note, and then just escalate from there.
Oh.
Yeah. Would you do the honors of whipping this out?
Oh.
Excuse me while I whip this out.
That is something right here.
It is an e-pipe.
It is an e-pipe. And we're showing you this on International Pipe Smoking Day as one of those what not to do type things.
Don't.
If you notice, it's supposed to look like wood, it's not.
It's actually metal.
It's very metallic.
What should be the stem is what are these called? The
reservoirs?
The reservoirs, vape, like the
Vape chamber.
vape
whatever,
chambers
I don't
is
know.
where you store the juice, the goop, it's pretty much oil.
It's
It's like
oil.
propylene glycol or vegetable oil with flavorings. is
Yeah,
what it is.
which again you really shouldn't be inhaling.
Lipid pneumonia.
Yeah,
That's one of Anyway.
But anyway, and then it plugs into this unit, which is supposed to be the bowl.
Atomizer.
Battery.
Yes.
But it's the battery. You charge it there, and then you hold it apparently like a normal pipe,
Oh, and that's the button. I didn't
and
realize that.
you put your finger where you're not supposed to put it on the hose pipe.
So if you get in the habit of smoking that, you're gonna burn your finger.
and you push down on the top of the bowl and take a puff that way.
Boo hiss.
For what? Okay, and for those of you that are quitting smoking and things like that, all to you, I completely respect that. And if you need an e-cig or something to help you with that, by all means. But I think in general to pick it up because it looks cool, is just kind of dumb.
It's counterintuitive.
It's extraordinarily counterintuitive
Because pipes look way cooler.
One, pipes look way cooler. Two, there are obviously, compared to prepackaged cigarettes and things, there are very much health benefits for these over cigarettes.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things that is starting to come to light, and I don't know why it didn't at first, considering the issues of a propylene glycol or vegetable oil base, there are cases of people coming down with lipid pneumonia, which, for those of you that don't know what that is, in your lungs you've got all of your cilia and everything that actually take in your air, and that's where your blood vessels interact
Absorb the action.
with actual air.
Absorb the oxygen.
And at those points, whenever you inhale an oil or something lipid, it's fat-based, oil or fat-based, it coats all of those linings, so air can't come through. And because it can't be absorbed by the skin, considering as it's an oil, you just build up fluid in your lungs. You eventually build all of this oil up in your lungs, so people are coming down with lipid pneumonia from these, which is a ridiculously bad side effect, because if you can't clear your lungs, it's just as bad, if not worse, than regular smoking, because at least you'll
It's
eventually
worse than a
clear out.
smoker's
Yeah.
cough.
Yeah, well, it's worse than a smoker's cough, and at least you'll
You're
eventually
coughing in
clear
there.
out everything
Yeah.
after all of your cells replenish and things like that. So, I think that there are probably just as many negative health effects to these as there are cigarettes. They just manifest in a different way.
Yeah.
Beyond that, one of the issues that people take up with smoking, regular smoking, be that cigarettes, pipes, cigars, what have you, is that it entices children to start. Now, you can argue that these are healthier than smoking. There are cases of that lipid pneumonia coming out. Nicotine in general has been said to be bad. Most of the juices have nicotine. You can get it without, but most of them have it. Some more? There. And, but this is probably going to entice children more than smoking ever could.
Because for this, there's no negative side to it whatsoever. You see that and you're like, oh, that's cool, it's a gadget.
Yeah.
For me, I enjoy messing with them because it's just like whenever I was a kid and used to tear apart pins. I was a cool engineer at that point in time. It's the same thing now,
Yeah.
And so I can only imagine children seeing their parents e-cig or something like that, it's cool, they're not smoking, it must be fine.
Yeah.
Why can't I?
If people are going into...
It doesn't leave a smell on you nearly as bad as cigarettes do, so kids could be more prone to it, still get the nicotine,
and then be able to hide it more.
be able to hide it
because
more
it doesn't-
readily. Not because it's small. You don't have packs, you have a
Not only that, but if you're feeling real industrious, you can even come up with hash oil
Yeah.
made from marijuana.
They already have.
And that's the deal. It's
Also, you could say that, if, say for instance, kids are seeing people walking around with this in non-smoking areas, lighting it up, or like vaping, or
whatever, yeah.
using this, they realize, oh, that's not smoking. I can do that.
Yes.
If I'm being told I can't smoke, because smoking's bad, and you're doing that in a non-smoke or like a no-smoking area,
Then it must not be smoking.
then it must not be smoking. I can do that.
I agree.
Kids are a lot more logical than we like to give them credit for.
Yes.
And these are cool because you can accessorize. I mean, shit. This is a little like snake head as the mouthpiece, and it's made on what looks to be like or meant to look like a wood pipe.
Yeah.
I mean, you can accessorize
it's cool
these.
looking.
Yeah. I mean, you can get.
It's cool looking in its own right. Jesse's over here.
I saw on Gizmodo.
He
this
died a little bit inside. You said that.
week. Yeah.
I just threw up in my mouth a little bit.
I saw.
Drink more beer.
Yeah.
More beer.
I saw on
Yes.
Gizmodo this week. There's actually an e-cig, which is just a regular straight long narrow one that has a Bluetooth speakerphone and microphone built in. So you can connect it to your phone and probably play music or call people through it while you're outside smoking your e-cig. Like,
Here's my issue with vaping in general. If you're using a vaporizer to wean yourself off cigarettes, more power to you. With the objective eventually being
No nicotine.
Nothing.
nothing. No vaping.
Yeah. Nothing. Like
Nothing
you're getting
at all.
off of everything.
I applaud that.
yeah.
However,
Yes.
if you're going to smoke and you're picking up one of those just to look cool, you're an idiot.
Yes. Huzzah!
Like, if you enjoy tobacco, smoke tobacco.
Yeah.
Don't get tobacco flavored vapor shit.
Yeah.
And I personally think there's something very primal about man's connection with not
Fire.
only with fire especially, and with smoke. Maybe something evolutionary, but it's something that is comforting to us.
Yeah.
And so, I smoke to smoke.
Yeah.
I do not vape. I
Yes.
think that is the lamest thing ever.
Yes.
I don't know if we talked about it last video or if we just talked about it in our day to day, but we mentioned a while back that smoking a pipe especially is more about the ritual of doing.
It's very therapeutic.
Get that fake that false light, let it go out, tamp it down, relight,
Yeah.
and if periodically relight throughout the smoke.
Yeah.
But it's all part of the ritual and habit of
It's
actual
about the ritual, man's connection
Not only
with
that.
fire and primal things. It's also about man's connection with each other.
Well, yeah, and
It's
you
a
know that's
social thing.
it's a fantastic speaking point in social gatherings because if you're a group of pipe smokers and you have a pipe like say this one, and you see it, you'll ask me questions about it more than likely.
Absolutely.
And if I see like David's pipe or Eric's pipe or something like that, they're all different. I'm gonna ask them, where did you get it?
They're
Why,
conversation
what?
pieces.
They're all conversation.
They're little works that you're smoking, little works of art.
And you automatically have a connection with that individual.
Because
Now-
you share one thing.
Now,
at least
the
that.
thing is, though, weirdly enough, there was a bunch of articles today about random smoking-esque type things. There was an article on Yahoo about how secondhand smoke's dangerous and all that bullshit. There was another one where it was the old head of the DEA coming out and saying legalization of pot is a disaster. And then there was another one talking about the rise of vaping and how it's starting to almost become what hookah lounges were a couple years ago.
Yeah.
And people go out to these stores. I mean, there's a
They're
store
vape
here.
bars.
Yeah, where you go in.
There's one here. It's called Black Market Vapes.
Yep.
Yep. And you can go in and smoke just like you would here.
Yeah.
Like it's not a smoking lounge. It's,
Yeah.
a,
It's a vaping lounge.
Yeah, and like you go in there and you can try a bunch of different flavors and then buy a bunch of different
You
flavors.
can customize flavors too.
Exactly, and it's slowly gaining that social aspect. The only thing to me though is it stems off of the instant gratification like mindset that we're starting to gain as a society, which, you know, whether you like it, whether you don't, I think it's personally a bad thing, you know, but it's really going off of that.
Yeah.
I honestly think it's going to be a fad because they'll come up with something, but you were talking about it being primal. Last night I watched on YouTube. They had the Bizarre Foods with Andrew Zimmerman,
Yes.
which is an awesome show.
Yes.
But they had the Tanzanian edition where he went to Tanzania, which was kind of cool. And he was with the Maasai, and they smoke cigarettes. And then when I went to Tanzania and studied abroad, and I went out with the Hadzabe, which is one of the last hunter-gatherer tribes, like, they smoked, like, hand-rolled tobacco cigarettes, and I think they also smoked pot. But like, no joke, they would...
African logo weed?
Yeah, pretty much. But they would do the whole, like, spark, like, starting a spark by friction to light a cigarette. You know, like, that sort of thing.
That's freaking primal.
Oh, yeah. No,
That's
yeah.
what we need here. Just
Yeah, they would just like,
We need little flint sticks. Yeah.
like, no joke. I watched them do it. It was cool as hell.
hey, man, you need a light here.
Hang on. Give me a minute.
Just one more second. Hold on one second.
Yeah. I got a nice ember here.
I got an
Hit that. Yeah, no, it's just, but, you know, it's true, and these are arguably some of what are considered anthropologically as, like, the roots of humankind.
Yeah.
And they're still doing it.
Yeah.
You know? And they're doing it for thousands and thousands and thousands of years.
Yeah. And they're still doing it right now.
And they do it today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Most definitely.
Yeah. But they're using a little bit healthier tobacco, right? They're not putting the chemicals in it that we do.
No, that's
the
the
prepackaged cigarettes. We're not putting the fiberglass and the filters to cut your, lungs and.
For one thing, too, and you're right, a lot of it has. But you'll see these older tribal cultures. I mean, and when I say that, I mean even talking about the Native Americans pre-massive influx of what Europeans, but they've been smoking pot and tobacco for thousands of years also.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
they never had. Well, and that was the deal. They never had any instances of congestive heart failure. They never had any instances of cancer, and that's not to say that they didn't, but maybe.
Of course, life expectancy was also 4.
Four. But I mean, it's interesting to see things.
Yeah.
Like that, like.
I do think it's interesting though, because there was that whole thing about the legalization of pot as well, and we started this off with us saying we don't like being told what to do.
Yeah.
Right? I am probably one of the biggest opponents of the legalization of marijuana, probably at this table. But I can see the point of it's just as much the government trying to say what you can do as smoking tobacco. But I would counter with, it is federally illegal. It is just an illegal substance. The act of smoking tobacco is not illegal per se, because tobacco isn't illegal. And I would say that if tobacco were to be made illegal federally as a substance, that is something different than the act of smoking. Like where I can smoke out in the open air, walking around with a cigar or a pipe, is, if the substance is not illegal, why is the act?
Yeah. Is it a the place with the weed?
Colorado?
No. Europe. I just went blank.
Amsterdam.
Hey. Okay. I think smoking cigarettes is actually illegal there, like out in public.
Public smoking.
Yes.
A lot of Europe has a public.
Yeah, actually, there's quite a bit of Europe. Denmark was the same way. I actually got to visit the Danish pipe shop of great fame when I was in Denmark, and I can guarantee you the place was smoky, but Denmark itself actually had a no public smoking law.
And that's what I was
But you can piss on the street.
So
I was in London.
You can get drunk as piss and piss on the street.
but you can't light up a stogie.
No.
Fuck their cats.
I was in London at the eve of Great Britain's smoking ban. And I happened to go into a Davidoff shop.
Ooh.
And if you guys have never been to a Davidoff shop, it's pretty hoity-toity. They like open the door for you and like let you come in, and they're all wearing suits and whatever. But the proprietor had a line of customers that were offering their condolences to him because of the smoking ban, because that was going to negatively affect his business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it was a very interesting sight.
Interesting.
Were they also buying things as opposed?
Oh yeah.
Or okay, I wasn't.
So they were
I just wasn't sure if they were coming by. I'm so
sorry.
And then just walking out.
They were patrons, right?
Okay.
Probably regulars there.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, yeah.
I'm so sorry for your loss.
Sorry
They're
for your
about to be
loss.
Like, I love smoking tobacco.
Yes.
It's delicious.
Delicious.
Scrumptious.
Muy
It's
delicioso.
scrumptious.
Like, but were it to be named federally illicit substance, I would stop smoking it.
Agreed.
Oh, well, that is unless I was willing to break the law and face the consequences. I mean, like, I don't know. I just applied for a PhD program. I really don't want to be nice.
That is
Nice
a good
smoke,
one. It's a lingerer.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's actually pretty cool.
But I just would be okay with it because it's the substance that's being illegal there. And that is why I just feel like, you know, especially with pipe smoking being lumped in with cigarettes, like in this article,
It's infuriating.
what's going to happen with pot? You know, is that going to be lumped in? Why is smoking pot like all throughout Colorado legal, but I can't go to a bar and light up a stogie or bring my pipe? Like, how stupid is that? I can go get baked and then drive to work.
Yeah.
And but heaven forbid I'm walking down the street with a cigarette. You know, like.
Speaking of things that are becoming illegal,
Okay.
ivory, in any form, they're toying with the idea of making illegal.
In any form?
In any form.
Wow.
So, pre-ban ivory is usually the only thing you can trade in these days. But now they're looking at, because poaching is becoming a problem again in the African countries, completely outlawing the sale of ivory in any and all forms.
Really?
Now, as an artisan pipe maker, I know a lot of people who use ivory as a decorative accent.
Well,
on
mastodon ivory.
Right, like on this Haitian. This is mastodon ivory.
It's such a beautiful.
It's a beautiful material. But now, if that passes, I will not be able to sell this pipe if I ever chose to sell it. It would be illegal.
Well, couldn't they?
I doubt
They
you
make.
would, but-
Wouldn't they make? I mean,
Probably won't.
I can't see them not making an exception for things like mastodon ivory and stuff, because if it's already extinct and has been for a very, very long time, I mean, is
But
it
that
really
also
poaching?
creates
There's-
a demand for ivory.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's what they're trying to stomp out the
demand.
for
Well,
ivory,
of course. And-
which
and
is
that's-
totally not the way to do it.
No, if you completely outlaw it, you're going to create an even larger black market
Yes.
for it.
Yes.
That was the issue with prohibition.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
Oh, bootlegging.
The issue really comes back to the African nations,
yeah.
whose governments are very corrupt. And if there are ivory harvesters, all they have to do is pay off the government, and they're going to continue to do what they've always done. And make a killing because people will be asking more for ivory.
Yeah.
They need to make well, I say they need to. I don't think they could, but it would be something if they could actually make legitimate ivory farms, kind of like they did with buffalo in the U.S.
What? There was.
That would be so costly, though.
Exactly, and that's the deal.
It would-
It takes a long time to get that much. That much ivory.
But then you have to think about it. That's still saying that ivory is a commodity to want.
Yes, and it's not something we need.
Yeah.
No.
If
Well, it's a precious material.
Yeah.
So,
but we're the ones that said it was precious.
Correct, but we said gold was precious too.
Sure.
Salt.
So, salt. Well, salt has practical applications.
Salt does
which
have practical applications.
make it valuable. But things
But-
like gold and silver, other than its industrial uses, the value that we assign to it is all just kind of made up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
So speaking of, I guess, kind of the demand or the the price of ivory going up because it's in demand or it's in danger of becoming illegal or something like that. But I work at a Western retailer, Western apparel retailer, and we sell a lot of boots. And one of the products that's going up in price consistently and regularly, actually, is full quill ostrich boots. Okay, because ostrich is a little harder to obtain right now for whatever reason. I don't know the logistics of it, but the price is continually going up, and it's the same reason or same thing we ran into several years ago was elephant hide was illegal to have or own or purchase or whatever because of the endangerment of elephants. But I mean, if they were to outlaw that, I mean, it's really it would suck.
Yeah.
Because it's a really good hide. But we don't need it. We don't have to have it, you know?
Yeah.
Well, by that argument, the only thing we have to have,
True.
we need very, very little to survive.
Going back to that Hanzabe.
Right. But that's not the point of life.
No.
Well.
Well.
Pursue the American dream. We have whatever we want.
That's an existential question.
It
is an existential question.
And it's very much subjective and up to the individual, I suppose.
Well, I think we should cover that after our little break.
Oh, okay. All right.
So I'll see you in a bit. Welcome back. Jesse did it. He did it.
I'm sorry.
He got all existential.
Yeah.
He got all deep.
You know, we've avoided that pretty regularly, but I feel like it's time.
It's
We gotta do it again, man. We just gotta do it.
we gotta break it to you. It's
I'm sorry.
It's time.
It's inoperable.
Yeah. Oh God.
But I'm ready to go deep. I got my boots on.
Not that kind of deep.
No.
Hey, my tattoo's still fresh. Can't go too deep.
That's what she said? Alright. Yeah! So, do you see how we already sidetracked the deep conversation? No, but we just can't do it. Okay, so the purpose of life, right? Is that what you said?
Oh gosh, here we go.
Is that the way you phrased it?
Eric discussed, we don't need certain things like elephant hide. This is absolutely correct. As far as practical application, as far as needing that to survive.
Yes.
But my point is, to me, the point of life is not simply to just exist, but it is to find some sort of deeper meaning through whatever means it is that you like to find that meaning in. Being very subjective for a reason.
And being very vague.
Very vague and very subjective.
I'll throw in my 2 cents
Okay,
already.
throw in your 2
I'll
cents.
get this out. I'm having a bit of a rough day today as far as thinking. So my answer to the meaning of life is 42.
Fair enough.
As the biologist, because to go out to kind of razz Bobby here, who says, as the expert here, as the guy who does it, as the biologist.
Yes, thank you.
The purpose of life is to
procreate.
Yes, to ensure that your genetic
Continuance of the species.
code continues. But the thing is, though, we have gone beyond species thinking to a individualistic thinking.
Correct.
That almost like family lines have become the new species, so to speak. We're all Homo sapiens. I think there was a study done recently that showed that we had some Neanderthal genes somewhere in there. So some Europeans, Homo sapiens, got freaky with Neanderthals. But anyway, going off of that, like, you want to pass along your genes.
Mm-hmm.
So how you go about ensuring that could be, to some people, the term peacocking, by buying fancy clothes, buying fancy cars, doing a lot of fancy things. I don't know what the hell that's gonna. Buying fancy phones that beep in the middle of things. It's that sort of thing, and it all ties back to passing that seed on, like getting down and dirty, making sure you have a family.
And so what would you say about those people who choose not to procreate? And in fact, the Western world, we know, especially in Europe, their populations are actually declining because they're not reproducing fast enough to replenish the existing population. Have we short-circuited evolution?
No. Well, first of all, I'll get back to your question, but what do you think about getting deeper?
Getting deeper.
Yeah, with the what's the purpose of life? Real quick.
expressing yourself. I mean, as the artist, it's about finding things that define who you are or help to express who you are as a person.
And
as
it's
an
very much an individual quest.
Individuality.
It has nothing to do with the collective.
So, 42.
42.
Procreation.
Procreation. Expression. And then
To borrow from a famous writer, cultivated leisure.
cultivated.
Okay, Oscar Wilde.
Cultivatedly. I like that.
I do too.
I'm a fan of leisureness. And living a life of leisure.
The trick is the
Leisure.
cultivated part.
See,
Yes.
this reminds me of a parody religion, actually, as it's known. It kind of takes a dig at regular established religions as far as the West is concerned. And
Boiled for our sins!
Ah! Yes. No, it's called the Church of the Subgenius,
Aww.
and they have a this big belief that their way of attaining higher living and presence is through the allocation of slack. And slack is literally, as it means, to not work, to not do anything. So very much cultivated leisure in the sense of, I am slacking
There
off.
is another view here,
Yes.
Yeah.
and that is that of the utilitarians, which is to maximize pleasure and reduce pain in all facets of life.
Are you sure that's... Okay. So almost like a libertarian, or libertine.
Libertine.
Right,
Yeah.
that's what we call utilitarianism.
Yeah.
So it's just the maximization of everything that is pleasurable and the minimization of everything that is painful.
You're getting as much utility out of everything as possible.
Correct.
Yep.
Now, but that doesn't necessarily have to be efficient, so to speak.
No,
Okay, it's just the maximization of something.
correct.
So I don't
And they use an economic working definition of utility in the sense of a unit of work or a unit of,
Gotcha.
of usefulness.
I don't need to be like that one guy from the movie where he takes the pill and uses 100% of his brain.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I don't need to be that.
No.
Yeah, limitless. Thank you.
Limitless. Like
Yeah.
I mean, as far as measuring, and the deal is it's very subjective. But as far as utility or utils are in economics, it's merely the measure of usefulness of something. So if something has a high level of utility, if it has lots of utils as far as your own subjective view, then it's something that's very useful. So, but even that can be kind of misconstrued and being very subjective, because as far as a pipe, for example, is concerned, this pipe right here is attaining its maximum utility because it is doing exactly as it is intended to do without any issues, without any problems, and it brings me the most joy. So it's kind of an interesting subjective, amorphous sense of measurement.
To get back to the fact that Europeans are not having babies.
Yeah.
Or at least enough to offset the death rate. And you were saying that that's not looking out for the species. And you could argue, though, that the world population has gotten to a critical mass to the point at which it is actually more species-oriented to refrain from procreating in some instances to ensure that the best genes are the ones that are being passed on.
Possibly.
Yes.
However, you could also argue that there's a large portion, again going with Europeans, who are generally very concerned about the survival of their culture. Because as their population declines and the immigrant population expands, they're losing what it means to be French
They're losing their
or to
nationalism.
be German, because there are fewer and fewer and a greater influx of immigrants who bring their own unique cultural identities and whatnot.
Yeah. Well, I guess in that regard, it's coming to the point where too many people have thought of life as not being dictated by having a family of sorts.
Yeah.
Whether that's, the nuclear family, whether that's, single mother, single father, whatever combination of it, there are no children in that to extend the family down generations. And so if you're not dictating your life and what a life should be on accordance of having a family, it's very easy then to just not have one. and saying, I'm living my life, I'm doing what I want to do.
I don't need children.
Yeah, or children would even get in the way of that.
Yeah.
And make it a hardship to be living the life this way.
Correct.
Yes, and so in that
that's very utilitarian.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
because it's the maximization of pleasure. Is it pleasurable to have kids? Perhaps the
For
totality
us?
of its totality would be yes.
It's fun to make.
Right.
Yeah.
But I don't think anyone would argue that raising children is easy.
no. We would also have to look at just what society as a whole, especially Western cultures, have deemed as to be the proper raising of a kid.
True.
Like, what goes into raising a kid now is substantially different from what went into raising a kid when our parents were children.
Yes.
And then the other generations. So as the generations progress, the standards at which you have to abide by to properly raise a child
Are very different.
are very different.
Yep.
And I say properly raise, it's not that like someone's out there like judging you, and there probably are neighbors and whatever that are judging you. No, but like what it takes to actually set them on their way in the right direction. You know, give them a leg up, make sure that they don't wind up face down in the gutter somewhere. What it takes to do that is a lot more work, per se.
Yeah.
An investment of time, money, and energy in order to do that. Whose fault is that, though? You know, why can't it be just go outside and play, get dirty, rub some dirt on it?
Well,
you know?
knowing my kids, that's
That's the way it's gonna be.
That's probably not far off from what my children will be raised with.
They're gonna go off to kindergarten, and you're gonna be like, hey, have you smoked your morning pipe yet? No, Daddy, I made me cough. I told you to have it with breakfast.
Where's that beard?
Yeah,
I
I
didn't see
gotta
the
shave
beard yet.
every morning.
You've been shaving like I told you, boy.
Yeah.
Dad, I'm 6. I can't have shaved. I don't care. You need a beard by the time you're 12.
There, have a straight razor.
Yeah. I'm gonna teach you how to use this straight razor.
Your grandpappy used it in Korea to kill a young man.
Okay, for fuck's sake. And yet again, we digress.
Oh,
Oh, goodness.
oh. Nice.
So do we then cut back on populating? Do we increase populating? I mean, I feel like our aim should be just the continuation of the human race,
Well-
not necessarily the expansion of it. Because
Even then,
we're gonna run out of room.
Yeah.
well, not only that, but you can almost argue that with the advent of technology, you no longer need as many people around. I mean, if you look at the turn of the century, things like that, you had large, agricultural populations, things like that. You had a lot of kids because you needed help on the farm. Nowadays, do you really need that? Is there really
They're more of a liability.
Okay.
they're more of a liability? Do you need more children?
I'm sorry.
Or do you need just enough to carry on your name once you're
Yeah.
I'm sorry. The argument that you needed a lot of kids to help on the farm is bullshit.
Well, yeah.
You had a lot of kids because you couldn't keep it in your pants,
Well, we didn't have TV.
and so you just wound up doing it. Like, what do you want to do tonight, honey? I don't know. It's either go build a barn or fuck. What are you gonna do? Right?
Yeah.
So they have more kids. Well, we live on a farm. I guess we could use the labor. It's not a chicken or the egg type situation. It's a
It's not a,
these
we need more
people
kids, let's make more
think
kids.
we're married. We do this as a married couple. And what happens when you do that as a married couple?
You
As
have
often as they
kids.
had sex, they're gonna have a bunch of kids. So it's not, hey, we decided to buy that extra section of land.
Let's have a couple more kids.
Alright.
I
We
took
might
the
as-
bath for
yeah. Exactly. No, it's not that.
God.
Wow.
No, it's I expect you to please me, woman, as my wife. Like, think of the culture back then.
Yeah.
You know? What did women do? So, like, and that's not saying we should do it now, but That was the mindset. I'm sorry. We just need more workers is bullshit. I'm sorry. That has pissed me off about the South. Add it to the list. Add it to the list.
Oh my god.
We should keep a quote board right behind my head of things about the South that pissed David off.
Yeah.
God almighty.
Wow.
Well, to get back to your "you don't need as many people around" statement with regards to technology, think about what our communities are now. How many friends have you met on the pipe forums from all over the world?
Dozens.
Your circle has expanded globally,
Yeah.
and you haven't left your armchair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
Technology has made the world a little place.
Yeah, but at the same time, it is an expansive place because you're probably not going to meet most of those people ever. Massive multiplayer online video games. You know.
How many of those people do you know from everywhere that
Yeah.
you're never gonna meet?
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, you may have walked past them down the street
Never
and
know.
never
Never
even
know.
known, right? You know those sorts of things, and you look at then some of these more, and I don't want to say archaic or ancient cultures that are still existing today in some of the non-westernized worlds, but just some of the more, I guess you could say, traditional.
There you go.
Like they are community based.
Yep.
It takes a village to raise a kid, kind of thing.
Yeah.
That doesn't exist anymore. I mean, people get pissed off if your neighbor knocks on your front door because they thought something bad happened one night. You know, it's like,
Yeah.
go away, leave me alone. We're fine. Close the door. You know.
Isolationism.
Yeah. It's the interwebs. I blame the interwebs.
It's the interwebs.
It is very ironic that people seem to be, for lack of a better term, more dull now. And I say dull as in referring to sheer intelligence.
Yeah.
And yet, we all have at our fingertips access to more information than we can possibly even process.
I think we talked about that
We
last
did.
time.
We I don't need to possess the knowledge because the internet will possess.
Yeah.
And I possess the internet.
Yeah.
Thank God Al Gore invented it.
That's
You know?
right.
But you know, I mean, and it's the example, a good example of it is software engineers. In the 80s, you know, 70s, 80s, and 90s, when you first really had a surge in actual software development and stuff, you needed people to develop software. They learned a language.
Yeah.
They learned Java. They learned
Yeah.
C. They learned whatever. And you learned it front and back, and you knew
Yeah.
everything.
Like even any specialists now.
Yeah.
Like you're talking about software, but like think about any
Any
specialists. Like, are they really needed anywhere? Like it's
Because
more
you can-
beneficial to be a generalist.
I disagree with that because
Really?
I am a generalist and the job market is abysmal. Everybody wants specialties, okay? I would argue that there is no market for anyone that's a generalist. I mean, you look at society has progressed to the fact that if you're going to be a specialist in a field, you've really got to specialize.
I don't know. With so many degrees that you can get in a couple years online that qualifies you as a specialist, you know, that degree was your specialization, and that's all you need as a specialization.
Yeah.
But you're not specialized. You're
No,
not.
you know, and like I said, software development, you know, 80s, 90s, you learned a language, you learned C, you learned Java,
Yeah.
and you got hired as a C or a Java developer or something like that. Nowadays, you don't do that anymore. I mean, a couple of my friends and coworkers were telling me that in the past year alone, between bugs and actual new software and things like that, they've worked on 8 or 9 different separate languages alone. You can't afford to be a specialist in that field because in order to get a job, you need to generalize. I need to know multiple languages, even just a working knowledge of them. I may not need to specialize, but I need a working knowledge of multiple languages.
Specific generalization.
Because for me to say, oh, I'm a Java programmer, they're going to be like, well, do you know C#? Do you know whatever else? And if I say no, then I probably won't get hired for it or anything like that because I don't know it. I have to be a generalist instead of a specialist.
But it's still a specialization in computer languages and programming.
With-
What they discourage you to learn about philosophy as well as computer programming. or biology and chemistry as well as.
I almost disagree with that.
Or music, art, literature.
I mean,
you don't do that anymore.
Well, even my degree. Yeah, I have, my degree is in, so, it's computer information systems. I learned how to program and make programs. But, that's a bachelor's of business administration. I would say almost 2/3 of my course core have been in finance, economics, accounting, management, marketing, other excess skills.
All to be related fields.
They may be related, but there's something that in general I will probably never use in my field.
The thing is, though, you have to look at it this way. To me, I feel like people put so much weight on innovation. Like you have these think tanks that literally are just people who sit around and think of new ideas for companies and are paid to just think, right?
Yeah.
It's a bunch of bullshit.
Yeah.
I would love to just sit and think. That's what we do right here.
Yeah.
Pay us, right? No.
We'll be your think
We
tank.
accept donations.
But you also have to look at back when you would take a philosophy course and you would take literature courses and you would take all of those courses along with your academic focus. It would be under the guise that, or under the understanding that you're going to use those. You need to have a basis in literature in order to look up the academic literature you need for your research.
Yeah.
You need to have the philosophical mindset to ask those big questions because we didn't know jack shit back then.
Yeah.
You know? There was a time when we literally thought the earth was flat. Literally.
And the Earth was the center of the universe.
Exactly. Like, besides the solar system, the center of the universe. And so we had to have those philosophical backgrounds to be able to even grasp concepts beyond that. Now, when so much is being known, like, if I can find out that some guy in Japan figured out this one tiny little thing, and some woman in Ethiopia found out this other little thing, and then this guy in Antarctica that's been living there and growing a big bushy beard because he hasn't shaved and no one else is there besides penguins, figured out this other thing, and they all come together for this guy in Geneva, like, comes up with this idea and just combines them all. You don't need to have those backgrounds, right? So the generalization, and I feel like why it's more useful and they're putting such an emphasis on it is because the types of specializations that's needed, they're so finite that your usefulness is only in that thing. And yes, you may be a hot commodity on the job market, but your usefulness to the greater academia and greater thinking and greater cause that is human existence is minimal at best.
Yeah. There's not too many of those jobs out there.
True. That we can't all be the next like Darwin or
in fact,
Galileo and things like that.
Our system, which is built around a liberal arts education, is rapidly losing favor in exchange for specialization.
Yeah.
Trade schools.
It is.
Yep.
Things like
Siloed
that. People
education.
take music appreciation and just bang their head against the wall and they don't see the value in it. They just want to go do their major. And they're right, music appreciation on a resume, if that's not your field,
it's not going to help you.
Not going to help you.
No,
But
and it may actually hurt you.
and it might actually hurt you. And that's where I run into trouble. Too generalized. Not enough specificity.
One of these podcasts, I'll have to bring out my transcripts from Knox.
Oh, dear.
It looked like someone took like a handful of darts, and there was this big wall with a bunch of random classes, and they just kind of looked the other direction and chucked them all. Right? It makes no sense what I took, but I just wanted to take those classes.
But they discouraged that. I tried to do the same thing, and my advisors hated me for it.
Oh, I know.
I said, why aren't you sticking to your major? I was like, because this sounded interesting.
Yeah, I wanted to do it.
Yeah.
And that's when I say, I'm paying so much goddamn money to go to this institution. Let me take some random ass class.
And then they penalize you if you go over hours.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm butting against that. I'm glad I'm graduating this semester because if I had to take classes in the fall or the summer, I would get penalized for having too many hours.
So, it's stupid If I'm paying you to teach me, teach me.
Stupid.
Don't ask questions.
Teach me what
don't
I
put,
want. It's
don't,
my money.
Yeah, don't put limits on it. Just teach me. I'm paying you to teach me. Teach me, right?
Yeah.
It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
We'll talk a little bit more about all of this and maybe wrap it up somehow and bring it back to pipe smoking in some fashion after the break. So see you in a bit. Damn, that butterberry's good.
Mm-hmm. There's some tasty stuff.
So, can we all agree that colleges have lost their way?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Agreed.
So let's move beyond that point now
So
to something that popped into my head during the break. Like no joke, the minute or two break that we had.
Light bulb.
Let bulb.
Mythology.
Ooh.
Ooh, I like it. I like it already. Let's talk about it.
well. Here's what I wanted to go with this. No. Modern. What are centuries from now
Oh god.
going to be the myths from our time?
Memes.
Memes. Velociraptor.
Yeah.
Bad luck, Brian.
Yeah. There's gonna be
Angry
these
Cat.
epics of Brian.
The adventures
The
of
epics.
Bad luck, Brian.
Wow, much myth. Many mythos.
But honestly, like we have these because we can boil it down to a couple different kinds of myths. Creation stories, like deities.
Yeah.
Then there's the mythological creatures and settings. And then there's mythological, I guess you could say, characters.
Yeah.
Think Hercules.
Yeah.
Flying scorpions.
Flying squid.
Snipe.
The snipe, right? No, but you think you think back to these and
I've done
Right.
where there's these myths and you can argue the truth behind them or not. But what are the myths gonna be about our age?
Because of technology, I'm not sure if mythology will evolve in a similar fashion.
Well, it was an oral tradition for most of what we consider to be historical mythology.
We will look to the Reddit and Tumblr.
Yeah.
South Pinterest.
Yeah. Like it's not gonna be Ovid telling stories. It's going to be the Reddit. Reddit may actually be proposed as like there was some guy named Reddit.
And it's the coalition of all of these ideas from everyone who ever was on
and he
them.
was just this great thinker who compiled everyone's thoughts.
But I don't know if that will happen because technology, our ability to archive and then access that data is much, much, much better. So the decay of said data, so where it would sort of evolve into the almighty Reddit who knew everything, right? I don't know if that will happen.
But data decay does exist.
Yeah, data decay
It
does
does.
still.
And it is
does.
a real thing, and
It
it
does.
is a real issue in a lot of different fields.
Mm-hmm.
But would it take on a more technologically based thing? Because whenever you think of, like, say for instance, Achilles, he had special armor that was specifically fitted for him. And then there were those. I think it was Perseus who rode Pegasus.
Mm-hmm.
Right? He had what would be at the time the most technically advanced things about him. He had the mirror shield to turn.
And Al Gore, so armed with the internet.
Yes, exactly.
Did
Like
strive
single-handedly.
for
Yeah, exactly.
defeated him in single combat.
Yeah.
Uh,
But or is it just going to be some mishmash of? In my day, we had pencils, and we would stick them into the cassette tapes and rewind them to the point that we wanted to listen. Like, is it going to be stuff like that? or will we actually have myths?
That is so hard to predict.
Yeah, that is. That would.
Well, do you think that the Greeks thought that was going to become a myth?
I feel like they put more weight on the telling of those types of stories, though.
I don't think it was necessarily to evolve into myth, other than they really didn't have a good means of recording that information.
Yeah.
And so for us, I mean, the fact that we have the internet, we have these things, and yeah, data decay is present, but in general, we don't have to put such a weight on traditions in that sense, because we can ensure that.
You want this one?
Yeah, give me that. Give me the damn Zippo.
Oh, faithful.
Yeah, and I can see your point, and it's true, because, you know, those old storytellers, I mean, like the bards of
yeah.
like the Middle Ages and things like that.
They're not necessary.
They would go to from town to town, and that was one, entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
But we have, like, you know, lolcats for that. We have YouTube.
I can't has cheeseburger.
Yeah, like we have stuff like that for entertainment.
I haven't heard that.
Two, that was
It's already mythos.
exactly. Right. Well, you're right though. Memes and things like that, like I feel like
they're culturally and socially relevant, so they will eventually evolve into what I think of as mythos.
Myths, yeah.
Myths.
Yeah. Was it Sticking Tommy?
No,
What?
Sticking Tommy.
Oh.
What does yours say?
Oh, I don't know. Woolly's chinks or bat wings. Oh God! That sounds like a bunch of wasteful, like racial slurs.
Inch high at 100.
Oh my gosh.
Big Sky Brewery, you're a crazy motherfucker.
Yes, you are.
I have to weigh in on this. I don't think you're a true Texan unless you can decipher the puzzles underneath the Lone Star cap.
Amen.
But that's besides the point.
I've had one Lone Star, and it was at a bar, and so I didn't get the cap.
Really?
Yep.
My father drinks Lone Star heavily.
Drinks
Lone Star. Ever since I remembered, I grew up thinking Lone Star was like the natural light of like other people, you know, like the Schlitz and whatever else, because Dad drank all the
Schlitz.
time, and so.
My best friend's dad growing up, he always, whenever I'd go over there, he'd be hanging out on the cigarette burned couch watching the History Channel in his whitey tighties and drinking a Schlitz and having a cigarette in the same hand.
Married with children. Yep.
He'd take a puff, exhale, take a drink, take a puff.
Oh man.
Oh my
Good
god.
stuff.
Yeah, I'm like, natty rat.
Fatherhood at its best.
And he did that so often. His kids, except for my friend, he had 3 brothers. Or
Yeah.
he was one of 3 brothers. And the other 2 brothers also did that. Or they'd sit around in their whitey tighties and drink a Coke. But it was awful. I'd walk in and they wouldn't even bother putting pants on.
Hey.
Hey, okay,
Oh.
God almighty.
Oh.
It was better than my buddy Walter. I'd go over to his house, and every once in a while he would have to yell at his mom, "Go put on a bra!" Like, stuff like that. Because she would just be wandering around, like she'd go out of the shower, walking upstairs. So like, what's going on? And they're like, "Don't look!" I'm like, "What? Whoa, what's going?" Like, and that made me curious. Then he's like, "My mom's just out of the shower." I'm like, "Oh, okay. You could have just said that, and I would have just stayed down here." You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. This friend's dad, he was actually always drunk. He was highly functioning when he was drunk. But for whenever this friend and I both got our Eagle Scout at the same time and had the ceremony together, and his dad went up to speak, and for the first time ever I saw him sober, and he was in rough shape.
I know quite a few
shaking,
people.
couldn't talk. It was a combination of stage fright and soberness. It was
I know quite a few people that function much better after a 6-pack of beer than they do sober.
That's called alcoholism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You think? Yeah.
Sad to say, but yes. So, what then, going off of our conversation about myths, is your favorite method of conveying a story?
In
Just period. What is your favorite way of conveying a story? of any kind. Just a story, like
It-
something.
If it is among personal company, I very much enjoy spoken word. But as far as friends and things like that in general, I find that 90% of my stories are written down and passed along on the internet. Because most of the people, most of my friends, the ones that I am not living the stories with, it seems,
Yeah.
it's mostly written word. I would say it's not a lot of spoken word.
I'm a big fan of epics. Things like Beowulf, Gilgamesh, the Iliad and the Odyssey. I like that style. An English professor put it to me this way. An epic is the art of portraying people as better than they are
Yeah, I agree.
to some purpose.
Okay.
I can agree with that.
It's difficult to me. I mean,
I kind of
until-
figured this would be the biggest.
I guess, until recently I didn't read much, so I enjoy reading now, but all throughout high school I didn't. But I enjoy the act of reading stories and I guess sharing what I've read with friends just through spoken word. But I mean, as the artist,
Yeah.
I like to portray ideas. It's harder to portray a story through a sculpture, in my opinion, or through the sculptures that I do.
Okay. Okay.
Through a sculpture, it is possible.
But is that your favorite way of conveying? Or at least
Visually.
I should say conveyance, not necessarily the way you convey it, but
Uh-huh.
it's your favorite way of conveyance of a story.
Yes, I enjoy looking at paintings or looking at sculptures or even looking at performances.
So visual arts.
Visual. I'm very much a visual person.
In that sense, I very much love written word.
Okay.
What about you?
I would say spoken word.
Yeah.
And I will admit, I'm a bit finicky about poetry. Like, open verse, free verse, kind of irks me.
Yeah.
Right.
Because
I like structure.
I love
Yes.
rhyme and meter.
Yeah.
If you can convey the same emotions and same subject matter as an open verse and free verse poem in a structured, rhymed, and metered poem,
That's why
to
Shakespeare
me,
was so
to
clever.
me, you are a better poet, hands down. I know that's not the most people would disagree with me who are heavy into the poetry world, because I feel like we have been straying very far from that. But I like storytelling in the fact that, like, especially with jokes, I love, especially dirty jokes, because everyone can tell it, and then it'll get passed down, and something will get added on, and it's almost like this telephone game of
Ever evolving
yes,
version.
exactly, and
Yeah.
that was what spoken, like those great epics being told in person were. Like,
Yeah.
there was no way of knowing. I mean, shit, he could even forgotten what he said last time he told it a week ago, and it'd be completely different this time.
Yeah.
And I love that because I also feel like each unique telling is just that, unique. It's a non-repeatable.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Like, you can try and replicate it, but it will never be exactly the same. And I like that about it. So, to give a joke, I think I told this. Did I tell the nun joke on here? I think I did tell the nun joke.
Tell it again.
Okay. The nun joke. So there was this nun, and she walks into the Mother Superior's office. She says, "Mother Superior, I need your counsel." And Mother Superior says, "Come in, my child, come in, sit, tell me what's wrong." And she's like, "Well, as you know, I just got back from leave for a little while to visit my family." And she's like, "Yes, I remember well about that, sister, tell me more." She's like, "Well, while I was with my family, I blasphemed. And I'm asking for forgiveness in your counsel." And Mother Superior said, "Oh, that is very grave, sister. I would not suspect that of you. You are such a devout sister, to tell me what has happened." And the sister said, "Well, as you know, before I joined the order, I was an avid golfer. And from time to time, I still am." And the Mother Superior said, "Yes, I recall that you were, and actually a quite good one. And The sister said yes, and I had a chance to actually go golfing with my brother this past leave. And the mother said, okay, and was that not a good and joyous occasion? And then the sister said, well, that is when I blasphemed. And the mother says, oh, I see. Well, tell me what happened. And the sister says, well, I was having a great round of golf. And I was on the 5th hole, and it was a par 5. Dog leg left, and I started off with the best drive of my entire life. And then it rolled and kept rolling until it was just pretty much in the dead center of the fairway. I mean, I could have one-shotted onto the green from there and then 2-putted for a birdie easy, you know? And it's like, but when the ball finally stopped, out from a nearby woods on the side of the fairway, ran this squirrel, and it grabbed the ball, put it in its cheek, and ran down the fairway with it. And Mother Superior said, oh my, so is that when you blasphemed? And the sister said, no, Mother, I withheld, you'd be proud of me. So, however, after that, out from the other side of the fairway there was this tall tree, and a hawk swooped down into the fairway and grabbed the squirrel in its talons and took off again, flapping its wings mightily until it got really high and started towards the green. And Mother Superior said, oh my gosh, well, I take it then that is when you blasphemed. And the sister said, oh, no. I withheld again. You would be very proud of me. It's like, but while that hawk was flying with the squirrel in its talons, the squirrel was writhing and flopping around in its talons, and finally the hawk lost its grip, and the squirrel came plummeting down to the earth and landed just outside the green, and the ball popped out of its cheek and then rolled onto the green to 5 feet from the hole. And the Mother Superior just looked at her, leaned back in her chair and said, you missed the fucking putt, didn't you? Right? Now, I love that joke.
Yeah.
Because I love the twists and I love how long it is. I like longer jokes with a lot of build-up. But I've told that joke maybe 20 times, give or take. And I always either forget something or add something in that I just remembered or embellish it a different way or word it a little bit differently or don't stumble when I'm saying it. And so I love that about storytelling. I love that about, talking.
Yeah.
Why we started recording our conversations here
It's because of that.
is why I like the spoken word.
Yes.
Because shit just goes all over the place.
Yes.
It's like a Jackson Pollock painting, but with poo.
Yeah.
Oh
Yes.
dear.
Sugar words never spoken.
Oh god.
That's fantastic. Oh wow. I love it.
Yeah.
Oh, Jackson.
I told that joke to my uncles in front of my grandmother.
Oh dear.
Luckily, she missed when I swore, but otherwise she thought it was a really funny joke because she's a very devout Catholic.
Yes.
Oh dear.
My uncles loved it.
Yes. As well they should.
So, same uncle who married myself
Oh,
and Jenny. Yep.
all right.
Cool.
Yep. Him and his brother, my mom's 2 brothers.
The divorce attorney.
Yes.
Yeah, the divorce attorney.
My uncle, the divorce attorney, was ordained as a minister to marry myself and my wife. Like, he was our officiator. So,
Wow.
yep.
Very neat.
You gotta
Wow.
have some fun.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
Wow.
So, guys, we good?
Yeah, we're good.
I think that about wraps it up.
It does.
Happy International Pipe Smoking Day, everyone.
Yeah.
Happy International Pipe Smoking Day. Smoking Day, guys.
Happy International Pipe Smoking Day.
L'chaim. So, once again, thank you for tuning in.
Chime in on what you think about the meaning of life.
Okay. To clarify, we talked about the purpose of life.
The
That's
purpose
not
of
necessarily
life.
the meaning.
It's the purpose of life.
Do you want to talk about that next time, or you just want to say,
Oh, good lord.
Yeah, we'll skip that one. We'll skip that one. The purpose of life.
It's about conveyance of a story
Yeah.
about what you were smoking while you were watching